How do you feel about the word sales? If you're like many entrepreneurs, myself included in the beginning, when you hear the word sales, you feel icky, you think about things like salesy, you think about things like manipulation, and it triggers this massive sense of insecurity and just nervousness around the whole concept of sales. You think about an outreach or a sales conversation that you've done, it doesn't feel good. But if you understand these two elements about sales, it will completely change about how you approach sales overall, how you show up in your strength, your confidence, and in your leadership for anything related to sales. So what are these two essential elements and how can they support you in your sales? They are the heart of sales and the mechanics of sales. And if you can really learn them, integrate them, and master them, they will massively elevate your leadership, allow you to show up stronger, more confident, and ready for any sales conversation. My name is Renata De Mello. I'm a feminine leadership and sales mentor. And this is a place for you to align your heart and soul with selling, so sales feels empowering to you. Now, before we dive into these two elements, let's introduce something here that will really help you understand what these are better, and that is the philosophy of sales. The philosophy of sales, how you approach sales in the first place, is what the lens that you're looking at sales from. And if there's any part of you that is looking at sales that feels that sales is icky, that is manipulative, that is salesy, that is forceful, then there's already a part of you that is looking at this whole aspect that is called sales from a place that is not empowering, and that will affect how you approach your conversations, how you speak to your clients, and ultimately the results that you get from your sales. And you're going to want to stick to the end so you can learn about some sales principles that will completely elevate how you approach sales, your sales leadership, and also hear about my conversation with a client that described their sales conversation as a hot mess and disaster, and how we were able to turn that into something that was really powerful for them. Anybody knows what I'm talking about when I say in sales, there's two main components, two main paths that really allow for a powerful sales leader to show up in the world. It's the heart of sales and the mechanics of sales. While we're going to be navigating this week, we're always going to be talking about both. They can't really exist without the other. So the heart of sales is really where you're coming from. It's you showing up in your leadership. It's you being able to show up with like really high intention, full service to that client. It's you knowing how to manage your body and how to regulate your nervous system so that when the fears come, you're good. You know what to do. You know how to show up. You know that you can still serve and be a vehicle for that philosophy that we're just writing about here. And then the mechanics of sales is all the frameworks that we're going to learn, that we're going to practice, that we're going to do here. But without you being fully embodied in your heart of sales, you can't really show up fully in your mechanics of sales. Does that make sense to you all? There's only so much. You're going to regurgitate stuff, but it's not going to be true. It's not going to be real. And it's not going to come from a place of full empowerment. So we're going to be always talking about both the heart and the sales. And of course, if we just stay in the heart of sales and we don't actually do or implement any of the mechanics of sales, then we're just in La La Land, right? We're just here in this beautiful unicorn world. In the mechanics of sales, there's a few things that we're going to cover that we already discussed on each day here, which is lead generation, which is your outreach, discovery call, the offer, objection handling, and the follow-up. For each of these steps, we have a way to actually measure. So anything that becomes part of the mechanic of sales is measurable. And in the heart of sales, you're going to really talk about showing up fully, showing up with all of yourself, and that, healing a lot of the things that stop you from showing up fully. And in the mechanics of sales, you're going to be always tackling what's the number, what are you doing, what have you done today to really show up to yourself as an embodied sales leader? And can you show me the numbers? So when we're talking about lead generation, when we're doing outreach, how many of these turn into a discovery call? When you're doing discovery call, how many of these turn into offer made? When we make our offers, how many of these turn into a closed sales? And then when you're following up, how many of these turn into closed sales as well? So the mechanics of sales is something that is very measurable, and we will be tackling that. So when we are not tapped in, when you're not connected, and I'm going to say this often, when you're tapped in, tuned in, turned on, that's when you're like, yes, I am so ready. Like, I'm ready to give. I'm ready to show up. I'm ready to do my outreach. I'm ready to show up to this call, regardless of the outcome. I'm feeling it. When you're like, you're really feeling it, you're feeling like the groove, and you're like, you can't can't like wait to just be with that client or potential client on the call. So when I'm not in that fully connected state and I show up to call, what are some of the things that happen throughout the call or the outreach? And I'll say just like a few here. Fear of rejection. You don't show up in your leadership. You're not actually saying what you want to say. You might be holding back on saying some of the things, or you just like start over giving. You ever felt like you're like on a sales call and you start like giving everything? And you're like, I'm gonna come and clean your house. I'm gonna come and like do your next child's, book, or like I'll come and like solve your entire world's problems. And you just like start completely over giving, and it still doesn't turn into a sale. It doesn't matter. So before we can show up in service and make it all about them, that we make it all about ourselves. Before you can make it all about them, you have to make it about you. And let me repeat this again. Before making it all about them, you have to make it all about yourself. And that's a key aspect what makes the heart of sales and the mechanics of sales coexist. And it's only by embodying both that you can really achieve true success. With that in mind, we can approach one of the problems that my client had. He expressed his fear around not being able to show up in the right state of mind, feeling like a hot mess, and therefore his sales calls were becoming a total disaster. And this is what I had to discuss with him. So just in that preparation of just like showing up, one, you're a hot mess. They don't turn out well, and the preparation before is very important. The preparation before on the client and understanding who the client is, but also on yourself. Are you anchoring to your mission? Are you anchoring to your sales philosophy? Are you anchoring into what puts you in your best mood to actually, before you hit play? Do you guys know that she's just like grooving before she hits she lets everybody else on the Zoom call? What do you think that's happening? What do you think we're doing here? What do you think she's doing here? She's getting her nervous system amped up. She's getting herself really pumped to serve. Twerking. It's so good. Right? Because what's happening in the body? Oh my goodness, expectations. Oh my goodness, how is this gonna turn out? Oh my goodness, it's gonna be a sale or not? It's gonna be a client. Am I gonna show up in this way? You have all these things that are happening in your brain, which by the way are totally normal. What are you going to do with it? Are you just going to be like, just really allow yourself to just center and get out of your head and into your body so you can show up fully? Or are you going to let that implode you? Because what can happen is that it will implode you. And that's why a call like this can become a hot mess. Does that resonate? You guys feel seen on like some things like, oh yeah, Jesus, I've done this so many times. So it's like before a call, oh my goodness, like I have like my hottest groove playing sometimes. I embody Beyonce sometimes, because I just want to feel like I'm showing up on that call at my highest and my fullest so that I can serve that person, because it's not about me. So here is one of 10 principles to help you elevate your sales. And it's the principle that you are responsible for your nervous system, not your client. It is your responsibility to show up to that call fully tapped in, tuned in, turned on, ready to connect that person to what it is that they're really desiring for through you. And so when you show up in your scarcity, in your fears, in your nervousness, you're putting that responsibility onto your client. So you really want to do what you need to do so that your nervous system is ready and you can show up in full leadership for that client. And if you want to know more principles to elevate your sales, click the link below and watch this life-changing video that I created on this topic. And if any of this resonated with you and if you found this video helpful, subscribe to the channel. We're going to be talking here about everything that you need to be fully connected and tapped into your leadership, including self-expression, education on sales, and spiritual practices so that you can show up in your full leadership, tapped in, tuned in, and turned on.